Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wireheads. I know the topic box isn't ready yet, but I didn't want to quite give away what we were talking about just yet. But
I don't do surprises on my channel, so if you're watching me, you already know, but that's okay.
lawmen, execs, and Cyberpunk.
Yeah. It's going to be a good episode this week, but some of you might be new. You might be wondering, who the fuck are these people? So let's fill in that question first.
So,
if you would be so kind.
Yeah, so anyway, hello everybody, welcome to Wireheads. I am Diamond Dust. I am a, professional GM and also a Twitch streamer that does, our favorite tabletop game, Cyberpunk RED, every Wednesday night. And my co-host here.
Hello, I am Emmerron. The last 2 weeks have had some bad luck with running my weekly game on Monday nights, Neon Inferno. But normally that is the plan. Monday nights at 7:30 Pacific, we run Neon Inferno on my channel. I also am a professional GM on StartPlaying, and I've been going through a subathon that the last couple days I've intended to stream and then had something get in my way. Tuesday was actually... It was a good thing. I got to spend time with my family, it's always fun to spend time with them. Wednesday was the aftermath of hanging out with my family. That was not so fun. So yeah, that's where I've been. But yeah, I also am here, very excited to talk about our topics this week. It's going to be a good one, I think. And hopefully a discussion the community at large can benefit a little bit from. And also, the back half of the episode is going to be good for all you aspiring GMs who are like, the hell do you do when something goes way off the rails? You'll see the moments that we have to quote on that. So anyway, Diamond, where would you like to begin the first topic of our day today?
So, you know me, I'm one of them filthy Redditors. Anyway, it all starts anytime you see the words lawman, exec, and cyberpunk show up, and most likely this GM is either new, or maybe they have very strong feelings about the white-collar class or the people that wear the badge. In this case, it's always, why do these people have a place in Cyberpunk? And while today I'm not going to give what is a definitive answer, I am more going to give an argument for why they belong here, including the fact that we do have, one of our prime examples, of course, we're going to lean on from Neon Inferno, and also another one from Team Stormchaser. We have Rook. And we also have, Tequila.
Yep.
Then also, of course, one of the other arguments we're going to give is in the matter of execs, which, of course, Emmerron has had experience playing exec. As none other than everybody's Uncle Larry.
Yep. I've also run a few tables for execs as well, here and there. It's been less consistent in terms of, having an overarching player in a campaign, but some of the one-shot tables and stuff I've run before have had execs in them, and they're fun to run for, honestly. I love it when I have an exec in my party.
And I also have execs I have an exec at one of my tables as well, on my Saturday night table. So of course, we're gonna go, through the typical anatomy of this Reddit post. It starts off with, lawmen belonging here because, they are, a fact of life in any dystopian city. You do have, of course, forces that, are lawmen, whether that be police forces, neighborhood protection, private security forces. And then also, of course, in the case of execs, there is no have yachts without those that, have the yachts. And even then, you playing as an exec, being a have yacht would be a very, very hard thing to do.
Yeah, you are not an exec who is part of the have yachts club. Not at all. Not even close. You might be aspirationally living on the edge of the have-yacht spaces, but not like you're not part of it. That's not your world, not yet at least. That's part of the growth of an exec.
You're a have, but you're not a have yacht.
What you have is a slightly nicer apartment in a probably less shitty part of the city than your cargo dwelling conspirators. Like, it's not much better, but it's something.
So in the matter of lawmen, not all lawmen are going to be the stereotypical, donut eating, cigarette smoking, fucking baton whipping cops that you see, showing up. And, we see some of the worst of, cops out there. But also on the other hand, you also have good cops, and you also have other cops on the other hand that, they're not really part of the good, the bad, but they're just doing their job. So I would like to take a moment to look at Tequila. Tequila was a cold case detective who was a lawman. Tequila was very much more doing his job, but, alongside the Edge Runners, because they both had, similar goals. Also, on top of that, happened to be part of the same Elflines Online Elfline. Tequila himself, while he didn't go out of his way to do good unless, it was something that would benefit him later, it really shone later on in Storm Chaser when he became allied with Maelstrom. Not so much a member of Maelstrom, but was able to call on Maelstrom members to assist him when, their faction of Maelstrom was taking over, taking over the Totem Towns from Warlock. And, of course, you have, that. But then, also, if you'd like to talk about him, Rook.
Yeah. So Rook was part of the NCPD, full send. But the way that he came into it, he's very idealistic, right? So he's one of those people that, one of the cops especially, that like doesn't really give a shit about internal politics, right? If something's wrong, it's wrong. Something's right, it's right. And no amount of handshaking, money trading hands, incentives, all that nonsense, none of that matters, even in the slightest to Rook. And so his whole thing was very like, the group he would hang with in the NCPD were all the people who were like, something about this is wrong. And of course, added to this is the fact that in the world of Neon Inferno, where he met up with the rest of the group, the police have been waging a takeover campaign effectively into the old combat zone. So like he's looking daily at the like criminal acts that his own department is committing without having a ton of power to say anything or do anything about it, until his partner comes along and is like, hey, I'm meeting some friends who are interested in doing something about this, and takes him to a meeting out in the old combat zone where the party is, and basically strings him in as a co-conspirator, and knowing that he agrees with what they're doing, but maybe just didn't know about the inn. And the party had some distrust with him early on, because they're like, we don't know this cop, like he's a fucking boy in blue. He earned the trust back when he pulled the C4 charge on his own department and sank it into a crater. So it's kind of like, now he works as a PI, because now he kind of chooses what cases is he going to take on. Do they align with him morally or ideally, or are they things that he would rather not work on because they're not things that really are true to who he is and the sort of things he would do. So when you look at lawmen, I think like the first thing that you should think about as a GM is, what are they fighting for? And are those things potentially at odds, especially if they're at odds with the way they're a lawman, right? Because lawmen can also cover corporate security, it can cover NCPD, it can cover private investigators, it can cover like a whole breadth of different methods of serving rules or the rule of law, right?
Well, for example, we have the Davis Squad from 6th Street in Danger Gal Dossier, which, you know, they're actually... one sec. Let me pull up Danger Gal Dossier. I think most of them either have ranks in lawmen or at least a few of them in the bunch do.
Yeah, I think there's a few in there that do. I don't know if all of them do, though.
So, leader of Davis Squad, you know, lawman rank 4. Let's see, Coldfire is a solo, Breacher is a solo, Knockout is a solo, Roof Diver is a lawman. So, you know, there's people out there that, at the end of the day, these are the guys that call for help. And, you know, help will come if, you know, they roll low enough. One of the other things when looking at lawmen, when we look at a lawman who decides to be an edge runner, this is a lawman that has decided to, you know, break off from being part of the normal beat cops. Maybe, of course, you know, they're maybe a detective. Maybe they're part of, you know, maybe they're part of SWAT, and the only time really they have to go out and do things is when, you know, duty calls and they have to go, they got to go get their gear and get down to the scene. And of course, as a lawman who's also doing this, the NCPD is underfunded. You gotta make your money somehow. So why not, you know, go out, you know, quote unquote, working the beat while, you know, working with your edge runners, and, you know, you get tied down in something that looks a little bad, you know, maybe, you know, iron sights have pushed over the line a little too far. You know, you could cry out for help, and, you know, hopefully somebody picks up. And I suppose, yeah, that's one of the other things with lawmen that I understand, that some people are like, why the fuck would I want to play this? You know, my ability is you know, RNG to the worst degree, because I really don't have ways to modify it. And
to be fair, we've gotten some great advice from Jay Gray on our interview with him. If you guys haven't seen that, highly recommend it. But he was saying, because it does make sense, part of the urgency of calling for backup is modified by the emergency at hand, right? Is it a selfish call for backup where it's like, we're calling because it's a gig, right? Or is it a genuine public danger that you're facing? Because if you're facing a genuine public danger where other people would likely be calling 911, or, you know, like calling in the police on it, your odds of succeeding that backup role should go up, or in some cases, even if it's really dire, it should auto succeed because there's like no way to fail it. But it depends. It's highly dependent on a couple of factors.
You know, like in the case, you know, say you're going down to your favorite luxury brand clothes store, and, you know, making a deal with the cashier here, and then suddenly, you know, someone comes in trying to, you know, demand, you know, money and just fucking loses it, like goes full on psycho. Man, I don't know. I think that'd be a real great scenario. I'm pretty sure for a lawman, maybe you could make the argument that, you know, this guy's gone over the edge, this guy's lost it, please send max tack. It'd be a hard call to make, but if it is a cyber psycho call, would C-SWAT say no?
Well, C-SWAT and max tack are two very different things. C-SWAT is NCPD.
Yep.
And it's their cyber SWAT division. But max tack is its own org, separate from them. That is like the ones that break glass in case of cyber psycho. That is max tack. They are the ones that if they come in, everything within that block is just getting flatlined on principle, basically. They are not a delicate approach. They're a sledgehammer, and they're the last resort.
Max
basically.
Hammerman.
there's a reason he's got a name, and God, is it appropriate? Yeah, max tack is a whole different thing. So like, for those of you who are maybe newer to Cyberpunk, because I didn't understand this until much more recently, when you look at the lawman's backup table in the core rulebook and you see rank 10, C-SWAT will come. C-SWAT is the NCPD's cyber psycho division, not max tack.
Wait, oh, is that rank 10? Because I thought rank 10 was like the FIA and or Interpol. Really? Oh gosh, I guess I've never really looked that far into it, just for the simple fact that, like, you know, I don't often have lawmen, you know, get that far along. So I guess just to really, you know, talk about like what it is, you know, so backup ranks 1 and 2, you're likely going to get rent-a-cops that come running.
No, Diamond, you are right. It is National Law Enforcement, Interpol, FBI, or NetWatch. Right below it is C-SWAT, though. That's where I got them mixed up, because I'm like, C-SWAT's definitely there. Like, yeah. But yeah, C-SWAT is its own division, just to be clear about that for anyone who's confused in the audience. And
when we look at these when we look at this, the way it's the way lawmen like outside mechanically being played, lawmen have a very powerful ability to put bodies on the field in your favor. Now, of course, you know, there's gonna probably be some repercussions where it's just like, okay, you called for our help. Why were you in a gunfight with Biotechnica security? That's a better fucking question. And you better be ready to answer those.
Next question.
It's like, yeah, they shot first, Captain. And I suppose the other thing that I need to look at when it comes to lawmen as well is, like, your organization is going to have motivations. NCPD, you know, above all else, is, you know, protect the interests of, you know, of course, protect the public interest and, well, the corporate interests as well that, you know, fund them and keep them going, and, you know, uphold the law. 6th Street, you know, they've got a contract to keep, and that's Haywood. They got to prove that they are a force for good.
New classes for Red? No, cool guy, bad hat. These exist. But these are the ones these are the ones that are probably the most maligned, though. Those are the ones that like people don't normally look at them and think like, oh, I want to play that.
Well, here's next question. Like, cool guy, did you come in from the Edge Runners mission kit by chance?
Oh no, I've known him. He and I go back.
All right.
We go way back. Yeah.
All right. Because, yeah, lawmen, exec, and media don't show up in the Edge Runners mission kit, which, understandable. Their abilities are not so... lawmen could be used towards Edge Runners mission kit, but I understand why maybe they didn't want to bring that one on.
Yeah, I mean, it complicates a couple of the scenes, I think. Like,
absolutely.
Without spoiling anything, there are a few scenes that police can get involved in. And they're very much antagonistic in the cases that they do show up. So yeah, I wouldn't want them in there probably. That said, not the CEMK, but the gig I wrote, Pay to Win, does feature an intro line for every role, including lawman and exec. They're actually the first two. I actually pulled my document up because I'm like, wait a minute, I know I wrote those, but I was curious where they sat. And the reason I did that is because my brother in one of the play tests for it ran an exec, and he said it didn't feel like he had a place there. And I'm like, okay, well, like, let's better define why you're there then. Because I think that that's true. It's not universally true, but it's more true than not across the board, I think. That like you want to come in and be maybe giving the exec a reason why they're there initially, right? Because their corporation shouldn't usually, unless they're a specific kind of corporation, usually they won't care about the small people, right? They're gonna care about, corporate warfare, which involves very important big people that wear suits and their bodyguards who are outfitted with the best thing R&D can get them. So yeah.
So I suppose as we're bridging over to execs, that's a good spot. So when I look at lawmen, sometimes lawmen, the reason why they become edge runners, because, they got to pay their bills. Honestly, the lawmen's side hustles are kind of garbage, to be honest. Like, it is painful being a rank 4 lawman and trying to just, do it off a side hustle. Because at rank 4, your best one is $200. Like, you're kind of down there with Nomad and some of the others, starting off at only $200. So it's kind of oof.
I mean, it makes sense though, given that, like, who's gonna have a badge do anything that would make more, right? You're playing for 300 eddies. You're playing either some very serious underhanded deals, or someone, and like lawmen know people in all the wrong ways, and they have to stick with the law, so no one is gonna trust them to do something illegal. Yeah. So,
and then sometimes other lawmen, hey, NCPD won't let me work the case on the books. I need to do it this way instead.
Yeah, so, there's that too.
Like in the case of that of like River.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually going to bring that up because there's actually 2 really good cases for exec and lawman in 2077. River is the easy one for lawman, obviously, because that's what he is. To a lesser degree, though, we have Takemura, who I argued before, like, you go back and forth, you could call him a solo, you could call him, he's the hired help for an exec, but he does give us an idea of, like, if you are an exec and you are forced to prove your worthiness to your corporation, what do? You do exactly what Takemura did. And you, like, tap your resources, tap any open assets you have left, like Oda, because Oda is I believe it's kind of made evident in the early part of the game that Oda serves Takemura to an extent, which is the only reason he's willing to even entertain the fact that he's meeting with someone that's been branded by Arasaka as a traitor. But later in the game, especially if you take certain executive routes through the end of the game, you see Takemura has other people that are loyal to him. So, like, it's very clear, like, when you look at him, you're looking at an exec that's very, very spec'd to also do solo work. Cool Guy Bad had actually asked a really good question about lawmen before we move too deep into exec. Can a lawman run as a bounty hunter?
Yes,
absolutely, you can.
Actually, 100%. Mentioning that, let me just take a quick moment to reference an awesome source called Collecting the Random. Literally, the lawman rocker boy. It's a celebrity bounty hunter. Yeah, you think Dog the Bounty Hunter, or I guess for those know about the quote unquote bounty hunter, the apparently it turned out it was all an act when he finally had to come out about it. Patty Mayo. I don't know if anybody remembers that little hot streak that he had for a time.
I've heard of him a little bit, but not much.
So you've got the bounty hunter is just as much one as well, where maybe you're calling on other agencies to help when you're apprehending someone. But I suppose we bridge over to exec. What are we seeing on that side?
So on the exec side, you're dealing with the upper crust more, but it's important to remember rank 4 execs are like middle management. It's the best way I can put it. Usually you are not that important, right? And that's very good to, as a GM, when you're defining for your exec, like what are their stakes in a situation. It's important to remember, like, you've got enough power that you have team members under your control, or a team member at that rank, and bordering on a second once you get rank 5. But so you have enough respect within the company to be above some people, not enough that you aren't below others still. And that's very important.
If I had to put it, if I had to define like what rank 4 exec is, rank 4 exec to me, when I look at them, they are the like they're just above like your manager, but really, like, yeah, they have a little bit of pull over you, but it's just at the end of the day, you could shrug this guy off and like nothing's gonna happen for the most part.
Right.
Like, it's just like, oh, you're the new guy at in this part of the office. Go get my coffee, please. Oh, you actually work here. Okay.
I don't know if I push them that far down there. It depends on the corporation, probably. Like, if you're dealing with a big corp like Militech or Danger Gal, maybe.
I'm talking like the big Neos.
Yeah, the big Neo corps, that's definitely where you fall in the pecking order, probably. But it's for smaller corporations, because like what I've experienced with is when I played an exec, I played one working for my own corporation named Greengrass Corporation. Not to say I was the president. Oh, no. I was field sales. I'd go out and try to sell to the combat zones, and sometimes I'd make sales, sometimes they'd shoot at me. Great life to lead. But so this is like a great backdrop, I think, to put your players as execs into, is put them in a position where either their clientele or street level, which forces them to mix with them because like that's the reality of their job at that point. Or 2, you make it so that whatever their problem is with the upper crust, it requires them going down to the street. Like a great example of this that we see in 2077. So if you take the exec life path start, you are regularly dealing with Jackie as like a solo contact of yours on the street. And so you have to interface with it. You don't have a choice, right? And that's another great way that can work. So like there's the way I've written the intro for pay to win for an exec. So again, give everyone the background because this is right at the top of the adventure. This isn't going to spoil anything if you end up playing this later. But the whole premise of pay to win is you're getting hired by Derek Sylar, the big kahuna of yellow guide making, to reclaim his stolen yellow character from someone who's taken it, someone who's hacked it. And so for an exec, it's you work for a rival corporation, no brainer. And have hit a standstill creating games that inspire people to part with their hard-earned eddies. Your paycheck is tied to that kind of performance. Bottom line, you haven't been paid properly in 3 weeks, and you're gonna need to find something big if you don't want to become street scum by the end of next month. Enter Segatari, creators of hit MMO Outflands Online, and probably the biggest competition anyone has when it comes to game corporations in the city. You've heard word that a high-profile player of the game has had his account stolen, and that he's hiring a crew through a fixer named 3Piece to get it back. You see an opportunity to get the corporate upper hand here, time to make the call and get on that crew. So as you can see here, the way we're framing exec is very much you have an interest in doing this because it, as a matter of fact, is competitive for you. You get to one-up a corporate competitor while learning something about the inner workings of their system and what makes it tick and maybe what gives it a vulnerability so that your corporation can do something chaotic with that later. So it's very much that, right? Like these are still reasons you'd run on the street and maybe even get on a crew so that you can do underhanded executive things. Oh, hello, Nyla, welcome in. But yeah, that's kind of the way that I look at exec, is like you're still very self-serving. You've still got capital P privilege oozing out of every pore. But ultimately, your goals do not have to be terribly misaligned with a crew of edge runners. You, in a lot of ways, share a lot of those goals. It's just that you want something different from the end result than they do.
Also, another look at exec, and I suppose, it's talked about in collecting the random. Not all execs are, corporates. Some are actually mobsters. They work, fronts of shell companies. Definitely giving you insurance. Definitely, not money laundering. So when you do look at the exec role, it doesn't just have to be the suits, but the ganger, or the mobster, I could see it fitting just a little bit better on the street level, but still at the same time, it's just like, why are you doing the gang's dirty work when you could have your goons doing it? Someone's got to get out there and tackle it. Now, the higher rank an exec gets is something that I've always just kind of looked at Emmerron, and it's just like, you start reaching let's say you finally hit exec rank 7, you get your keys to your nice Beaverville house. That feels like it's a very different level of play to some players, to a degree. You have you have safety away from everything, like you are bastioned off from the rest of the city. How do we keep dragging this guy by his nice silken suit back out into the fucking street when he's now when he's now high enough up in the corporate ladder that he's got a house?
The same way you do any edge runner, Pinky. You make it fucking personal. Doesn't matter how nice your house is. Doesn't matter the good neighborhood you're now living in. Doesn't matter how safe you think you are. You're not, by the way. The danger just shifted. Like, it's above you. It's not below you. It's above you now. But you make it personal. Maybe some street scum who's way too good for their own health, they killed someone important to you. Or maybe they just fucked your deal up by doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. And you're taking it upon yourself to make sure they know and see with their last dying breath exactly how badly they fucked up. So you go back into the city. Because for you, you're gonna get your hands dirty because it's, why would I send someone else? This is my problem. I want to make sure it's done right.
And I suppose another thing as well, and something I'd like to point to is Deus Ex Machina, or well, not Deus Ex Machina. It's just Deus Ex. Sorry, I've had God in the Machine kind of stuck in my head for some other reasons, but Adam Jensen, while, yes, Adam is doing, David's dirty work for him throughout Human Revolution and Mankind, and, leading into Mankind Divided, it gets a little bit different, gets a little bit weird. I haven't played all the way through Mankind Divided yet, but, if we look at Human Revolution, Adam is technically the head of the security department. He has his own place. He's he's got his own pilot that takes him places. So technically you could say Adam Jensen is an exec, but also a solo. And some execs, in the case of Adam, you are an exec only by title, but outside that you are very much more the busybody that's taking care of what the boss man wants. However, of course, the danger is above and below you now. There is people that want your job where you are. They want that house that you're living in. They want that pilot that's flying you around. They want your title. They want your paycheck. and
they want your life.
They are going to do, and don't expect that, you know, just because you wear the same uniform, you're on the same side. I've got an executive in one of my campaigns that literally she is dealing with another person from another department that is trying like hell to quietly get her to disappear out of Militech.
Yep. Oh, and a Militech, that's brutal.
And
Militech's scary for that.
She's lucky that she has a good covert operative and bodyguard covering her, and she's in HR. But that's the other problem. She's in HR. She's pulled some strings and turned on some alarms that has upset some other people. And now, there's prices to be paid.
So Nyla points something very fun out, actually, which is once you get to Beaverville exec levels, enemy medias become your enemy.
Oh, yeah.
The media ecosystem of this city can be turned against you on a dime. And like Diamond and I, because I'm running Tales of the Red for my groups right now and StartPlaying, I don't want to talk too directly about it. But there's several gigs in there where like media spin can put you on the bad side of everyone in Night City, whether you've earned it or not. And it's very interesting if that happens, because like all of a sudden now every part of that becomes so personal to you. You get so invested in like, no, I got to make my reputation better. I've got to improve this. I've got to make sure people understand when they look at me, I'm not a criminal or I'm not a murderer or, like all
I'm
these
competent.
things that can easily get spun. Right. Like I am a good person underneath all of the bad things I've had to do. And I need to redeem myself in the eyes of the public in order for that to hold weight. And if you fail that, whoops, you probably either went cyber psycho or died, one of the two.
Yeah. And especially in the case of lawmen and execs, all it takes is one really bad day of press, and you're gonna get fitted for some concrete shoes if you really don't pay attention.
Yep. Very important to remember.
Or you get to go do permanent bungee jumping.
No bungee cord required. So the main thing to remember, and I think this is where like I paint my Cyberpunk games with just enough reality to allow you to think about it, right? And like contextualize it. Think about the most powerful business people that you know in the world. People that I know, like many of us are aware of, like Elon Musk, for example, right? I would never call openly for violence against anybody and like say on a public platform genuinely that I hope anybody gets hurt or killed or anything like that. That said, many of us can understand the sentiment that goes to thinking something like that, right? And so with that in mind, it's not hard to leap to the conclusion of, what if every resource that was protecting you in your ivory tower suddenly was stripped away? What would you have left? That's a street level exec. Someone who has either not earned their ivory tower yet, or if they've earned it, they've had every part that protects that ivory tower taken from them because someone above them wants to see them die or fail at the very least and fall from grace. And they won't stop until one thing or the other happens. Or they die in the process, as one of my executive rivals learned in the last campaign Diamond Ran that I was part of.
Also, on top of that, what could be a real nasty thing? Fixers. Fixers can be your best friend or worst nightmare as a lawman or an exec. And I would like to point, for example, I know I'm going right to the big guy himself, Mr. K. All it takes is him having, knowing a thing or two about you, and it's just like, hey, I know you make this one specific thing. I know it is very expensive. I need this showing up at my night market. Otherwise, that job that you fucked up a while back, and we all know about it. Fiona Hayes is gonna have a heyday about it.
Do you remember Pepperidge Farm and Mr. K both remember? That's pretty much the way of it too. And Cool Guy Bad Hat points out a good thing here too. Execs don't always have to be part of a big corp, and I actually encourage, if you are new to running for an exec, unless your player has like a concrete idea of like the corporation they come from, and even then I might advocate that maybe they work for a subsidiary that then works for the corporation through the grapevine, right? So maybe they don't work directly for Militech. Maybe they work for a contractor of Militech's. And they just work as Militech despite not being Militech, right? So like that's a way to also change up the dynamics, make them more comfortable for you as well, because I think it's easier to GM and give reasons to somebody who's in a smaller corporation than if they're a powerful exec within like Ziggurat or Militech or Arasaka or any of the big ones.
One of the, I suppose something else that I wanted to point out as well, and this is also for the matter of lawmen. Sometimes, as a lawman, if someone is fighting for the right thing, perhaps you become that wrench in the system, much like what Rook did. But perhaps it is you hanging, the dirty laundry out, full knowing that you're good as dead as soon as you do it, but you're doing it for the right thing. And honestly, that's huge.
Yep. Having principles and ethics as a lawman is dangerous to your personal health. I always like him. When I think of lawmen in particular, my favorite bit of media to reference back to, because it is very appropriate for this, is Blade Runner. If you look at even the original Blade Runner, like you get a great idea of like what it is to be tasked with doing something, and then at the end of it all, beginning to question whether what you're doing is right or not, right?
And then
or the reasons you're doing it become very personal and not at all linked to your job. The choices you make are like very much I'm doing this for me, not because my badge says I have to.
And then 2049 is very much you're choosing to look a little bit further beyond the bounds of what you're supposed to be doing, and deciding that hey, this is the right thing, even though I understand what this will mean for the world when it happens.
Yep. I mean, there's a lot of good ways to play lawmen that strike at the heart of what Cyberpunk is. Because one of my favorite quotes to lean back on, if ever I'm having trouble conceptualizing something, for like player framing and things like that, my favorite quote that I lean to is, Cyberpunk is a game that isn't about saving the world, it's about saving yourself. And maybe the people you care about most if you are afforded the opportunity. But that's predominantly, it is not about saving the world, it's about saving yourself. And lawmen have a lot of things they may need to save themselves from, which is what make the execs too. Both these roles really apply to that quite heavily, actually. In some ways, more heavily than your typical street edge runner, because the street edge runner is free, right? For the most part, they might have some, things that hold them back or some enemies they've made, but they are free. They are not tied to any one organization. And in most cases, they're their own people. Whereas the lawman and the exec by necessity have to belong to a larger organization and all of the bad things that come along with that. So yeah, it's very, very important to keep that in mind, that being a player being either one of these roles can make plenty of sense. And I would strongly encourage all of you to think about how, like, if in a scenario you're writing or considering running, how would an exec or a lawman fit into this? You know, what would you give as an explanation? Just do it as like a little practice for yourself, even if it's not something you're actually prepping for. And if you are, I'd love to hear how it turns out. And honestly, because like, it's definitely one of those things that is harder to imagine when you're a new game master for the game. But the more you run, the more you realize, like, oh, these two roles fit very well in with the rest of them. 100%.
And yeah, that does answer the question from last week. It is very much, you know, there is a way that these guys do meet the three roles. Also, finally, actually, this was one other thought I had. Now, you might be one of those, well, what if I don't, you know, it's just like, well, what if I don't like, you know, these kinds of people anyway? And it's just like, I guess as a GM, personally, if you're not a fan of cops, if you're not a fan of execs, I get it. But at the same time, you're missing out on so much story potential by allowing these people to take on those kinds of roles. And
Right.
personally, I can understand, you know, some folks have trauma with cops, but it's at the same time, we have
But they
our
also
safety
don't-
tools for a reason.
We have safety tools for a reason. And it's also really important to remember, someone playing a lawman does not need to play NCPD. They can play corporate security. They can play a private investigator. They can play a bounty hunter. There are all manner of different lawmen in reality, even, right? The cops are one piece of that. And I think it's too easy for us to generalize them, because like, they all carry with them the same authority, some of the same bad habits, some of the same problems, but they are different. And it is important to remember that when you're approaching it from a, like, if your player wants to run something that is law focused, but not maybe NCPD, that is okay. That is a lawman all the same. And exec is also, like we've described, applicable to other organizations that are highly organized, like gangs or the mafia. You can have an exec who maybe their teamwork are just the, you know, their right hand guy. You know, yeah, that one in the car, that's Tony. Tony carries a bat. Tony will kill your kneecaps. Like, that's your bodyguard, right? That's your exec's bodyguard. And you're the guy calling the shots in that case, right? Bottom line, still applies to teamwork. So you can fit the mold other ways. Sometimes it just requires your player talking about it, and like with everything, like we say, use safety tools, use communication. If something doesn't feel right, or you know you have worries about a concept a player's brought to you, just talk with them about it. It's way, way easier to have a conversation than to just have festering issues if you choose not to have that talk with them, you know? Yeah. Call in some mob friends to handle things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think on that note, we've kind of hit a pretty good stopping point with this discussion. And of course, as always, if you enjoy what we do over here at Wireheads, feel free to subscribe. Come follow all of us. Our links are down below in the description, along with the link to episode 2. We'll see you over there, because we're going to talk about... We're going to take a little bit more... part 2 of episode 24. We're going to talk about some really interesting things that may have happened at our tables, especially for all you new GMs. These things might not happen at your table. They might.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun. Of
Of course,
course,
if you're watching this on Twitch or Spotify, you just stay put.
Yeah.
We will be right back with you here after a short break.
as always, I'm Diamond Dust.
And I am Emmerron.
And it looks like, is that Fluffy or Skinny over there?
This is Fluffy on my
Okay,
lap
it's
right now.
Fluffy.
Jeez. Oh,
All
boy.
right.
Bye, Floof.
But on that note, bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you next episode.
Bye, everybody.